Hi guys, this is Debbie. Welcome back to Debbie J's Crafting Corner. Today I'm making some more dimensional flowers using the Plumeria set from Spellbinders. Now I also went to a botanical garden this past week and took a couple of pictures of some of the Plumerias, what they actually look like, and I'll be honest, my cards, they don't look much like the actual flowers, probably because of what I'm using to do the coloring. I decided to use a new watercolor set that I've just recently got from Spellbinders. This is the Jane Davenport Glitz Sea palette. I think these colors are just so pretty. And I'm making a couple of watercolor panels. Basically trying to duplicate some of the colors that would probably be in flowers of all kinds. So I'm doing a green panel, and then I'm going to be doing one that's got some oranges and such in it. One of the fun things with watercolor is that you can basically keep on just layering up color until you like what you see. There are so many colors of green in this palette that I just had to go back and add some more after I dried the panels the first time around. Then for the yellow panel, that's going to be pretty much for my flower, the actual petal colors, I'm adding a bunch of red and orange into that. For making these dimensional flowers, you can basically use whatever kind of papers that you want. I've seen people use pattern papers. I just wanted to play with some watercolor, so that's what I'm doing. It would probably have looked a lot more realistic if I had had a picture up, cut everything out of white, and then colored it based on the photo. But like I said, I just wanted to play, and I didn't really want these to be too realistic, I guess. Now after those panels were dry, and that's probably what took the longest amount of time, I started cutting out the pieces. One of the cool things with this die set is it tells you on the die itself how many of each you need for each set of flowers that you're wanting to do. So on the leaves, for instance, it said you needed 2 sets of leaves, so that's what I'm going to do. For my little bundle or bouquet or whatever you want to call it of flowers, there's one main stem and then there's a bunch of flowers that goes on it. I'm actually going to be making 5 little blossoms on this. And the instructions I'm using to figure out how to do this, and mine are not completely shaped right, I'll go ahead and say that now. I'm using the instructions that Susan, who created the set, gives on her video. Now, one reason that I think I had a little bit of trouble getting everything to work exactly right is that the paper I'm using is very thick because it is watercolor paper. I have a feeling that it would be easier to break down into the right shapes if it was a standard cardstock, you know, like a 65-pound. Also, I have not yet invested in the tools that she has basically put together with Spellbinders to work on paper flowers. I mean, the stuff that she uses is fantastic. I'm using a notebook instead of I forgot what she calls it, but it's basically where you're able to put in all the veins and any kind of real embossing lines. And then I'm using my old Sizzix Secret Weapon, Stamper Secret Weapon, to do all of my, I guess, foam work, everything that you would need a foam pad to do. I am using these tweezers, I believe are some quilling tweezers that I just happen to have because of a quilling set I got at one point, and I'm using those for most of what I'm doing too. So I'm one of those that I believe use what you have, but sometimes having a better tool does get you better results. The hardest part of these specific flowers wasn't, getting the shaping of the petals and stuff done. It was trying to get them to do that kind of pinwheel. Let me show you a picture again of basically the flower in nature to kind of compare to. I had a really, really hard time getting my petals to go in the right direction. I think one reason I had such a hard time with this is just that the paper was so thick that it was hard to maneuver and get to go in the right direction. But this last flower, and yes, this is the last one that I put together when I decided to add one on, it's the one that wound up actually looking the best. So a little bit of practice does help you improve with that too. and they turn out just so darn pretty. Shaping the leaves were a lot easier. It's basically drawing a line down the center as an embossed line and then drawing in some little veins for the leaf after you kind of fold it in half to crease that line. Another real cool thing is that on these, the leaves on the actual flowers turn out that they are a little bit, I guess, waxy. So we're going to be adding some gloss to those too. Susan also mentioned in her video that there was something, I think she called them prills, in the center of the flowers. And I don't have any of those little balls that she has, so I'm making my own using some Nuvo drops. All of this is going to need to dry a bit, so I'm going ahead and trying to get all of those created, including all the gloss on those leaves, done so I can start working on the next piece. Okay, I've got all of my little flower pieces ready to go. Now I need to figure out the rest of the card. I decided to use one of the dies from this mini slimline set. I will put a link to this one down below as well. It's from a couple of months ago, and I decided I wanted to use one of these mini slimline frames, the one with the scallop edge. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to cut up a few layers and prop my flowers up. Let's go ahead and start assembling this little bouquet. First, I'm starting off with that little stem piece. I know it doesn't quite look right because the colors are kind of wonky. And then I'm putting down my phone on top of it to let it dry. That's one of the tricks with this. With each piece you add on, because it is so dimensional, you have to give it a little bit of time to dry, kind of in between each piece. Or sometimes you can put down a couple of them and let them dry together. But it does take some time. And that's probably the most frustrating part for me. Luckily, I am using art and glitter glue, which does tend to dry pretty quick, and it's working out pretty well for this. I think what she uses is kind of a thick, I think she called it kids glue or something. Anyway, you can see more information about that over on Susan's video to get a better idea of how she does it, because she's the expert. I am practicing and playing and learning how to do this. Now this is kind of the point where I start thinking, this does not look right, it looks way too barren. But as soon as I start adding the leaves in, kind of as filler, it starts looking wonderful. So I'm going ahead and I'm adding some art glitter glue on the back of each of my little leaves and just tucking them in between and around those little flowers. And you can kind of see the flowers are moving, because I have not let them dry sufficiently. I am too impatient and want to get this card all put together, because that's just kind of me. I'm always impatient. With all of the leaves added on, it does look a lot better, but I'm going ahead and adding some of those little tiny red dots that I made out of the Nuvo drops into some art glitter glue that I put in the center. Now, they're tiny and they are a little hard to handle. Also, they tend to flip and try to just rest on the rounded edge, and I have no idea why. But after I added that first one, to me, it just this looked complete. This looked like they were supposed to be in there, and that just kind of finishes off each of those little flowers. I still had a bunch of those little red embellishments left, so I decided to embellish the card and add a few of those little drops along the edge at the bottom. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope my card inspires you to create some awesome projects, and I would love to see what you create. So come join us in my Facebook group, Crafting with Debbie, and show us your creations. There's a link in the description box below. Here are some other videos that I know you'll enjoy. Thanks again, and remember, if I can make it, you can too.